The moment you realize your children don't want you in their lives is like having the air violently ripped from your lungs. 1 second you're breathing, the next you're drowning in plain sight. I know this because I lived it. Standing on my son's doorstep on Christmas Day, my arms laden with carefully wrapped gifts, while he looked me in the eye and said, "Sorry, I think you're at the wrong house. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from." I'd always been the type of mother who would move mountains for her children. When my husband died unexpectedly 19 years ago, leaving me with 2 teenagers and a mortgage I could barely afford, I didn't crumble. I couldn't. Mark was 15 and Sophie was 13. They needed stability. They needed a mother who could be both parents. So I became that person. I sold our family home in Connecticut, downsized to a modest 2-bedroom apartment, and picked up night shifts at the local hospital where I worked as a nurse. I cut my own hair, learned to fix the plumbing myself, and drove the same car for 12 years because every spare penny went toward their futures. I wanted them to have the opportunities their father and I had dreamed of giving them. And they did well. I'll give them that. Mark graduated from NYU with a business degree, married his college sweetheart Elaine, and landed a job with a financial firm in Boston. Sophie followed suit, graduating from UConn before moving to Chicago for a position in marketing. I was proud. So proud that I didn't mind that they rarely called, that my birthdays often went unacknowledged, that invitations to visit were few and far between. They're busy building their lives, I would tell my sister Diane when she questioned their absence. That's what we raised them to do. But at 58, after 33 years of motherhood, I was tired. Tired of being an afterthought. Tired of the obligation in their voices when they did call. Tired of sending checks every month to help with their mortgages, car payments, daycare costs. Money I could have been putting toward my own retirement. Money that was never acknowledged except with a quick text. "Got it, thanks." Still, I persisted. Because that's what mothers do, right? We give and give until there's nothing left. This past December, I made a decision. I was going to spend Christmas with my grandchildren. Mark and Elaine had 2 beautiful children, Emma, 6, and Noah, 4, whom I'd only seen a handful of times. Sophie was expecting her first child in March. I wanted to be part of their lives, not just a signature on a card or a voice on the phone. I called Mark in early December, my heart racing as I rehearsed what to say. "Mom?" he answered, sounding distracted. I could hear the din of his office in the background. "Hi, sweetheart. I won't keep you. I just wanted to know if I could come for Christmas this year. I'd love to see the kids open their presents." There was a pause, followed by the sound of a door closing. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. "Christmas. I don't know, Mom. Elaine's parents are coming, and we don't have a lot of space. I could stay at a hotel," I offered quickly. "I wouldn't be in the way." Another pause. "Let me talk to Elaine and get back to you." He never did. After a week of silence, I called again. This time, it went to voicemail. I left a message, my voice carefully steady. "Mark, it's Mom. I was just wondering if you'd had a chance to talk to Elaine about Christmas. I've found a reasonable hotel nearby. Call me back when you can." 3 days later, I received a text. "Christmas is fine. Dinner at 3. No hotel needed. You can have the guest room." I was elated. I booked my flight immediately, spent hours selecting gifts for the children, and even splurged on a new dress. Emerald green with a modest neckline that complemented my silver hair. I wanted to look nice for the family photos. The flight to Boston on Christmas Eve was turbulent, but my spirits were high. I took a taxi from the airport to the address Mark had provided, a beautiful colonial in an upscale suburb. The neighborhood was picture-perfect, with snow-dusted lawns and twinkling lights adorning the houses. I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. My son had done well for himself. I arrived just after 2 in the afternoon, pulling my suitcase behind me as I navigated the freshly shoveled walkway. I could see movement behind the frosted glass of the front door. My heart quickened as I rang the bell, smoothing down my coat with nervous hands. The door swung open, and there stood Mark, his expression flickering from surprise to something I couldn't quite name. He was taller than I remembered, his dark hair now peppered with gray at the temples. He looked so much like his father that my breath caught. "Mom," he said. the word flat. You're early. I smiled, ignoring the lack of warmth in his greeting. The flight got in ahead of schedule. I couldn't wait to see everyone. He didn't move to let me in. Behind him, I could hear the sound of laughter and Christmas music. We weren't expecting you until tomorrow, he said, shifting his weight to block the doorway more effectively. I frowned, confusion settling over me like a cold mist. Your text said dinner at 3. Today is Christmas. Christmas dinner is tomorrow, he corrected, his voice taking on an edge of impatience. Today is Christmas Eve. I pulled out my phone, hands trembling slightly as I navigated to his text. See, right here. Christmas is fine. Dinner at 3. He barely glanced at the screen. That's not what I meant. Look, Mom, today is just family. Elaine's parents are here and we're doing our own thing. Tomorrow is when we do the big dinner with extended family. Extended family. The words stung more than they should have. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. That's fine. I can come back tomorrow. Maybe you could point me to my hotel. The one you said I didn't need to book because I could stay in the guest room? A flash of something, guilt perhaps, crossed his face. The guest room isn't ready. We thought you were coming tomorrow. I stood there, suitcase in hand, as the reality of the situation began to sink in. So where am I supposed to stay tonight? He had the decency to look uncomfortable. There's a Holiday Inn about 15 minutes from here. I can call and see if they have a room available. Behind him, a small voice called out, Daddy? Who's at the door? Mark turned, his body language shifting. Nobody, sweetheart. Go back to Grandma and Grandpa. Nobody. That's what I was to my own son. Nobody. I took a step back. Dignity the only thing keeping me upright. Don't bother with the hotel. I'll figure it out. Mom, he started, but I cut him off. Merry Christmas, Mark. Give the children my love. I turned and walked away, my suitcase feeling heavier with each step. I didn't look back, even when I heard the door close behind me. I made it to the end of the block before the tears came, hot and furious against my cold cheeks. It was there, sitting on a bench at a bus stop, that I decided I wouldn't go to a hotel. I would come back tomorrow as planned. Perhaps there had been a genuine misunderstanding. Perhaps tomorrow would be different. It wasn't. When I returned the next day at precisely 2:45 p.m., dressed in my new emerald dress with arms full of gifts, Mark opened the door and uttered those unforgivable words. Sorry, I think you're at the wrong house. For a moment, I thought he was joking. Some cruel prank that would end with laughter and apologies. But his eyes were cold, unfamiliar. Behind him, I could see a Christmas tree surrounded by presents, a table set for dinner, and the back of Elaine's head as she arranged something on the sideboard. Mark, I said, my voice barely audible. It's me. It's Mom. He didn't flinch. I think you have the wrong address. There's no Mark here. And then he closed the door. I stood there, frozen, as the world tilted on its axis. This couldn't be happening. Not to me. Not after everything. I was halfway down the walkway when my phone rang. Mark's name flashed on the screen. I answered, hope fluttering in my chest. Mom? His voice was different now. Casual, almost amused. Sorry about that. Elaine's parents are super traditional, and they don't know about, the financial arrangement we have. We're trying to keep things peaceful. Financial arrangement? I repeated, the words foreign on my tongue. Yeah, the monthly support. Look, why don't you head back to your hotel? I'll call you tomorrow when things calm down. I don't have a hotel, Mark. I came here to spend Christmas with my family. He sighed, the sound grating against my ear. Mom, I can't do this right now. Just give us some space, okay? We'll figure it out later. I don't understand, I whispered, my voice breaking. What did I do? Nothing. It's not. Look, I've got to go. Dinner's almost ready. Mark, relax, Mom. We just want some peace. I took a deep breath, my entire body shaking. I understand. I was about to hang up when I heard it. Mark's voice, slightly muffled, as if he'd pulled the phone away from his face but hadn't yet disconnected. She thinks that money she sends every month buys her a seat at the table. The phone slipped from my hand, landing with a soft thud in the snow at my feet. I stared at it for a long moment before slowly bending to retrieve it. The call was still active. I ended it with a trembling finger. She thinks that money she sends every month buys her a seat at the table. The words echoed in my head as I made my way back to the main road, dragging my suitcase through the snow. They echoed as I hailed a taxi. They echoed as I checked into the Holiday Inn and sat on the edge of the bed, still clutching my purse with white-knuckled hands. And they were still echoing late that night when I opened my banking app and, with a sense of calm I hadn't felt in years, canceled the automatic transfers to both my children's accounts. I slept surprisingly well that night. No tears, no second-guessing. Just the heavy, dreamless sleep of someone who has finally put down an unbearable burden. When I woke the next morning, my phone showed 25 missed calls, 15 from Mark, 10 from Sophie. There were dozens of text messages, each more frantic than the last. Mom? The transfer didn't go through. Is everything okay? Mom? I need that money for Noah's daycare payment. Please call ASAP. What the hell, Mom? I'm about to be late on my mortgage. Call me now! I scrolled through them dispassionately, as if reading messages meant for someone else. Then I silenced my phone, placed it on the nightstand, and went to take a long, hot shower. As the water cascaded over me, I made a decision. I was done. Done being used, done being invisible except when my checkbook was needed. Done putting my life on hold for children who saw me as nothing more than an ATM. I dressed methodically in the clothes I'd packed for Christmas dinner, applied makeup with a steady hand, and styled my silver hair in soft waves. In the mirror, I looked different somehow. Lighter. The constant worry that had etched itself into my features over the years seemed less pronounced. At the hotel reception desk, I extended my stay for 3 more days. I needed time to think, to plan. Then I walked to a nearby cafe, ordered a cappuccino and breakfast, and pulled out my tablet. For years, I'd dreamed of traveling, but had always found reasons not to. The children might need me, the money could help them instead. It wasn't safe for a woman my age to travel alone. All excuses that had kept me tethered to a life that had slowly drained me. Now, with surprising clarity, I booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok, departing in 2 days. Thailand had always fascinated me, with its temples and vibrant street life. From there, I could make my way through Southeast Asia at my own pace. The thought sent a thrill through me, a feeling I barely recognized as excitement. My phone continued to vibrate on the table. This time it was Sophie, her name flashing insistently on the screen. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. Mom? Finally! What's going on with the transfers? Mark said his didn't go through either. No greeting, no, how are you? Just straight to the money. Hello, Sophie, I said calmly. I've decided to discontinue the monthly transfers. There was a beat of silence, followed by a sputtering noise. You've what? You can't do that? I'm counting on that money for the baby's nursery. I'm sorry to hear that, I replied, taking a sip of my cappuccino. I suggest you and Daniel adjust your budget accordingly. This is about Mark, isn't it? He told me what happened. It was a misunderstanding, Mom. You're being ridiculous. It's not about Mark, I said, though we both knew that was only partially true. It's about me finally recognizing my worth. She laughed, a harsh sound that held no humor. Your worth? Mom, you're almost 60. This isn't the time to find yourself or whatever midlife crisis you're having. The comment should have hurt, but instead, it only reinforced my decision. I'm 58, Sophie, not dead. And I've put my life on hold long enough. So that's it? You're just cutting us off without warning because your feelings got hurt? Real mature, Mom. I closed my eyes briefly, centering myself. I've given you both over $1,000 each month for years. That's more than enough time to become financially independent. We are independent, she snapped. But things are tight right now with the baby coming, and Daniel's commission-based job. Then perhaps it's time to make some difficult choices, like I did when your father died. Downsize, take on extra work, clip coupons. I can't believe you're doing this, Sophie said, her voice trembling with anger. After everything we've been through as a family. That's just it, Sophie. We haven't been a family in a very long time. I'm simply acknowledging the reality of our relationship. I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end of the line. When she spoke again, her voice had shifted to something softer, cajoling. Mom, please. I know Mark was a jerk at Christmas, but don't punish me for his mistake. I need you. The baby needs you. The emotional manipulation was so transparent it was almost laughable. 5 minutes ago, I was having a midlife crisis. Now I was needed. I'm not punishing anyone, Sophie. I'm choosing myself for once. I've already booked a flight to Thailand. I'm going to travel, see the world, use my nursing skills to volunteer abroad, perhaps. Thailand? She echoed incredulously. Are you insane? What about when the baby comes? You're just going to miss the birth of your first grandchild? I'll send gifts, I said mildly, just as you send birthday cards. When you remember. There was a long silence. Then, in a voice filled with venom, you selfish bitch. Dad would be so ashamed of you. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, waiting for the pain, the guilt, the overwhelming need to call her back and apologize. It didn't come. Instead, I felt oddly peaceful, as if the last tether binding me to my old life had been severed. I spent the rest of the day preparing for my journey. I called my landlord to give notice on my apartment, arranged for my sister Diane to pack up my belongings and either store or donate them, and contacted my supervisor at the hospital to tender my resignation. 32 years of service ended with a brief phone call and a promise to email my formal letter. By evening, my phone had fallen silent. No more calls from either of my children. I wondered if they were commiserating together, painting me as the villain in their story. The thought didn't bother me as much as it once would have. I ordered room service for dinner and opened my laptop to research accommodations in Bangkok. As I scrolled through photos of golden temples and bustling markets, I felt a lightness in my chest, a sensation so foreign that it took me a moment to recognize it as freedom. The next morning brought a knock on my hotel room door. I opened it to find Mark standing there, his face haggard, eyes bloodshot. He'd driven from Boston to Connecticut, tracking me down through my credit card charges. "Mom," he said, his voice hoarse, "we need to talk." I stepped aside to let him in, my face carefully neutral. He entered cautiously, as if expecting a trap. "You've caused quite a panic," I said, gesturing for him to sit in the armchair by the window. I remained standing. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "What did you expect? You cut us off without warning, disappear from your apartment, quit your job. Aunt Diane thought you might have—" He trailed off, unable to finish the thought. "Killed myself?" I supplied. "How dramatic. And how interesting that it took the prospect of my death for you to drive all this way." "That's not fair," he said, a flash of anger crossing his features. "I'm here now, aren't I?" "Yes," I agreed. "Now that your mortgage payment is at risk." He had the grace to look ashamed. "It's not about the money. It's always been about the money, Mark. I just didn't want to see it." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Look, I know I handled Christmas badly. Elaine's parents are judgmental as hell, and I panicked. I'm sorry." "I'm sure you are," I said, my voice devoid of sympathy. "But this isn't just about Christmas. This is about years of being an afterthought, of being valued only for what I could provide." "That's not true," he protested weakly. "Isn't it? When was the last time you called me just to chat? When was the last time you invited me to visit without me having to ask? When was the last time you thanked me, really thanked me, for everything I've sacrificed for you?" He had no answer. I moved to the mini fridge, pulled out 2 water bottles and handed one to Mark. He accepted it with a mumbled thanks, twisting the cap open but not drinking. "Mom, I know I've been distant," he said finally. "We both have. Life gets busy. Work, kids, mortgages. You know how it is." "I do know," I replied, perching on the edge of the bed. "I raised 2 children alone while working full-time. I still managed to call my mother every Sunday until the day she died." He winced. "That's different." "How?" "It just is," he said, frustration edging his voice. "Look, we're not perfect. We should call more, visit more. I get it. But cutting us off financially without warning, fleeing the country, that's extreme. Even for you. Even for me. As if I had a history of irrational behavior rather than a lifetime of selfless devotion." "I'm not fleeing," I corrected. "I'm traveling. something I've wanted to do for years but couldn't, because I was too busy making sure you and your sister had everything you needed, and apparently, everything you wanted. And now you're punishing us for not being grateful enough. I studied him, this man who had once been my sweet little boy. When had he become so entitled? This might surprise you, Mark, but not everything is about you. This is about me finally living my life on my terms. He scoffed. Right. That's why you timed this little epiphany immediately after Christmas. You're confusing cause and effect, I said. Christmas didn't cause this decision. It merely confirmed what I'd suspected for years. I'm nothing more to you than a financial convenience. That's not true, he insisted, though his eyes slid away from mine. We love you. Perhaps you do, in your way, I conceded. But love without respect isn't love at all. It's obligation. He drank from his water bottle, his throat working. When he looked at me again, his expression had shifted to something more calculating. So what will it take? Excuse me? To fix this, he clarified, gesturing vaguely between us. What do you want? More visits? Weekly calls? We can make that happen. The transactional nature of his offer made my stomach turn. I don't want anything from you that doesn't come freely. Then what's the point of all this? He demanded, voice rising. If you're not trying to teach us a lesson or extract some kind of promise, what are you doing? I'm setting myself free, I said simply. And in doing so, I'm setting you free too. Free from obligation. Free from pretending. Free from the burden of a mother who supposedly embarrasses you so much that you'd pretend not to know me on your own doorstep. He had the decency to flush. I told you that was a mistake. I panicked. No, Mark. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did was a choice that revealed exactly how you see me. One bad moment doesn't erase 20 years of what? I interrupted. Of me giving and you taking? You're right, it doesn't erase it, but it certainly clarifies it. He stood abruptly, pacing the small hotel room. So that's it? You're just done with us? With your own children? I'm done being used, I corrected. If you and Sophie want a relationship with me, a real one, based on mutual respect and affection, I'm open to that. But it won't include financial support, and it won't be on your terms alone. And if we don't agree to your conditions, they're not conditions, Mark. They're boundaries. And if you can't respect them, then yes. I suppose I am done. He stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Perhaps he was. For most of his adult life, I'd been a voice on the phone, a signature on a check, a benevolent ghost who appeared briefly at graduations and weddings before fading back into the background. I can't believe you're doing this, he said, echoing his sister's words from the day before. After everything Dad and I sacrificed, I cut him off with a sharp laugh. Your father has been dead for 19 years. What exactly have you sacrificed, Mark? Please, enlighten me. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. We both knew the answer was nothing. That's what I thought, I said, rising from the bed. I think it's time for you to go. Mom, I have a flight to catch tomorrow, and I still have preparations to make. He didn't move. You're really going through with this? Thailand? Yes. For how long? I don't know, I admitted. As long as it feels right. Maybe a month, maybe a year. And the house? Your job? Your life? I've given notice on my apartment. Diane will handle my belongings. As for my job, I've worked at the same hospital for over 3 decades. I think I've earned a break. His face hardened. And the money? Our money. There it was. The real reason for his visit, laid bare at last. There is no our money, Mark. There never was. There was my money, which I chose to share with you. I'm now choosing differently. We have obligations, Mom. Mortgages, car payments, Emma's private school tuition, Noah's therapy sessions. All choices you made, I pointed out. Choices that you'll now have to fund yourself, like every other adult in the world. He ran a hand over his face, desperation creeping into his expression. We can't just rearrange our entire financial lives overnight. We need time to adjust. You've had years to adjust, I said. Years of knowing those transfers wouldn't last forever. What did you think was going to happen when I retired? I don't know. I didn't think about it, he burst out. Is that what you want to hear? That we took you for granted? Fine, we did. I'm sorry. But you can't just— I can, I said quietly. And I have. We stared at each other across the room, the distance between us far greater than the few feet of hotel carpet. In his eyes, I saw the slow realization that he'd lost, that no amount of arguing or guilt-tripping would change my mind. "What am I supposed to tell Sophie?" he asked finally. "Whatever you like. The truth might be refreshing, but I won't hold my breath." He picked up his coat from where he'd draped it over the chair. "You know she's pregnant. The stress of this. It's not good for her or the baby." One last attempt at manipulation. I almost admired his persistence. Sophie is a grown woman with a husband and a medical degree. I'm sure she can manage her stress appropriately. He shrugged into his coat, movements jerky with suppressed anger. "When Dad died, you promised to always be there for us." "And I was," I replied, the calm in my voice belying the storm of emotions beneath. "For 19 years, I was there in every way that mattered. But promises go both ways, Mark. Where were you when I needed you?" He had no answer for that. With a final hard look, he moved to the door. "This isn't over," he said, hand on the knob. "For me, it is." After he left, I sat heavily on the bed, expecting the delayed wave of grief or guilt to finally crash over me. It didn't come. Instead, I felt a curious sense of completion, as if I'd finally closed a book I'd been reading for far too long. I picked up my phone and called Diane. "Hey, sis," she answered, voice cautious. "How are you holding up?" "Better than expected," I said truthfully. "Mark found me." "I know. He called me in a panic yesterday. I hope you don't mind that I told him where you might be." "It's fine. It was a conversation that needed to happen." There was a pause. And nothing's changed. I'm still going to Thailand tomorrow." She exhaled slowly. "I have to say, Ruth, you've surprised me. I never thought you'd actually go through with this." "Neither did they," I said, a hint of grim satisfaction in my voice. "That was their mistake. They're devastated, you know. Sophie called me crying for an hour last night. About the money or about me?" Diane's silence was answer enough. "That's what I thought," I said. "How are you coming with the apartment?" "I've started boxing up the essentials. The lease breaks at the end of next month, so we have some time. What do you want me to do with it all?" "Keep what you want. Donate the rest. I'm traveling light from now on." "Ruth," she said hesitantly, "are you sure about this? Traveling alone at our age?" "I was sure enough to raise 2 children alone," I reminded her. "I think I can manage a trip to Thailand." "It's not the same thing." "No," I agreed. "This will be much easier." She laughed despite herself. "You know, I'm almost envious. While you're exploring temples in Bangkok, I'll be watching The Price is Right with Gerald." "You could come," I suggested impulsively. "Not right away, but maybe in a few months. We could meet in Vietnam or Cambodia." There was a pause, filled with possibility. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "Gerald might need some convincing, but I'll think about it." After we hung up, I returned to my packing. Each item I placed in my suitcase felt like another step toward freedom. I was traveling with just enough: clothes for various weather, comfortable shoes, my medication, and a tablet loaded with books I'd been meaning to read for years. I'd also transferred a significant portion of my savings, money I'd been putting aside for emergencies, which had usually meant my children's emergencies, to a travel account. The rest would remain untouched, growing steadily for my eventual return, whenever that might be. As evening fell, I ordered my last American meal for a while, a cheeseburger and fries from the hotel restaurant, and ate it while watching the sunset through my window. My phone remained silent. No more calls from Mark or Sophie. Perhaps they'd finally accepted the new reality. More likely, they were plotting their next approach. It didn't matter. By this time tomorrow, I'd be thousands of miles away, beginning the next chapter of my life, without obligation, without guilt, without the constant drain of one-sided love. For the first time in decades, I was putting myself first, and it felt like waking up after a very long sleep. Bangkok greeted me with a wall of humid heat and a cacophony of sounds: honking taxis, vendors calling out to tourists, the musical lilt of Thai conversation. After 22 hours of travel, I should have been exhausted, but adrenaline carried me through customs and into a taxi bound for the small boutique hotel I'd booked in the Sukhumvit district. The driver chatted amiably in broken English, pointing out landmarks as we navigated the congested streets. I nodded and smiled, my mind still adjusting to the reality that I was actually here, halfway around the world from everything familiar. My phone had been silent since I'd left American airspace. I'd sent Diane a brief message letting her know I'd arrived safely, but otherwise maintained radio silence. There was something liberating about being unreachable, about letting the distance between me and my old life expand with each passing hour. The hotel was a charming 6-story building tucked away on a quiet side street. My room was small but elegant, with a balcony overlooking a courtyard filled with tropical plants. I showered away the grime of travel, changed into fresh clothes, and ventured out into the Bangkok afternoon. For the next week, I lived in a pleasant haze of discovery. I visited the Grand Palace, its golden spires gleaming in the sunlight. I wandered through temples where monks in saffron robes moved in silent contemplation. I ate pad thai from street vendors and haggled for trinkets in sprawling markets. I took a cooking class and learned to make green curry from scratch. In the evenings, I sat on my balcony, sipping Chang beer and writing in the journal I'd started on the plane. Not about my children or the pain of Christmas. Those memories seemed to belong to someone else now. But about the colors, sounds, and tastes of Thailand. About the elderly woman who'd shown me how to properly wrap a sarong. About the young backpacker from Australia who'd shared his table with me at a crowded restaurant and regaled me with stories of his travels through Southeast Asia. On my 10th day in Bangkok, I returned to my hotel to find an email from Sophie. The subject line read simply, "We need to talk." I considered ignoring it, but curiosity won out. I opened it as I kicked off my sandals and settled onto the bed. "Mom, it's been nearly 2 weeks since you've gone on this, whatever this is. Mark told me about your conversation at the hotel. I think you're being incredibly selfish and short-sighted, but that's apparently nothing new. What is new is that my doctor is concerned about my blood pressure. The stress of your little disappearing act has put my pregnancy at risk. Daniel and I are faced with the very real possibility of complications, and the financial strain isn't helping. We're about to miss a mortgage payment, and Daniel's commission checks have been smaller than expected this quarter. I don't know what kind of point you're trying to prove, but I hope it's worth potentially harming your grandchild. If something happens to this baby because of the stress you've caused, I will never forgive you. Never. We need the support you promised us. We've built our lives around it. You can't just change the rules without warning. If you have any love left for this family, you'll reconsider this selfish decision and come home. Sophie." I read the email twice, noting the careful blend of guilt, accusation, and veiled threats. Classic Sophie. Even as a teenager, she'd been masterful at emotional manipulation. A bad grade wasn't her fault, but her teacher's. A missed curfew was because her friend needed her. There was always someone else to blame. Always a reason why the rules shouldn't apply to her. And now, her unborn child had become the latest pawn in her game. I set the phone aside and walked to the balcony, gazing out at the unfamiliar skyline. The old me would have been frantic with worry, immediately transferring money and booking a flight home. The old me would have accepted the blame, apologized profusely, and resumed my role as the family safety net. But that woman was gone, left behind in a hotel room in Connecticut. I picked up my phone again and composed a reply. "Sophie, I'm sorry to hear about your blood pressure concerns. Pregnancy can be stressful under the best circumstances, and I hope you're following your doctor's recommendations for managing your condition. As for the financial situation, I've been clear about my position. The monthly transfers will not resume. This isn't a negotiation or a temporary measure to teach you a lesson. It's a permanent change in our relationship. You mentioned support I promised you. I don't recall ever promising lifetime financial support to 2 adults with advanced degrees and professional careers. What I did promise was to love you and prepare you for independent adulthood. I've fulfilled both obligations. I hope you find a way to manage your finances that doesn't involve my checkbook." Perhaps this is an opportunity to reassess your priorities and make some difficult but necessary choices. Take care of yourself and the baby. Mom, I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then turned off my phone entirely. I needed to clear my head. I spent the afternoon at a nearby temple, finding peace in its quiet corners, and the gentle smile of a Buddha statue that seemed to approve of my choices. By evening, I'd made a decision. Thailand had been wonderful, but it was time to move on. My initial plan had been to stay in Bangkok for at least a month, but Sophie's email had tainted the city somehow. I needed a fresh start. Again. The next morning, I booked a flight to Hanoi, Vietnam, departing in 3 days. I'd heard the northern region was beautiful this time of year, with its limestone karsts rising from misty waters and hill tribes maintaining traditions that stretched back centuries. When I finally turned my phone back on, there were no new messages from Sophie, but there was a voicemail from Mark. His voice was tight with controlled anger. "Mom, I don't know what you said to Sophie, but she's been admitted to the hospital with pregnancy complications. Her doctor is talking about possible bed rest for the remainder of her pregnancy, which means she'll have to take unpaid leave from work. Daniel can't cover their expenses alone. This isn't a game anymore. This is your grandchild's health we're talking about. Call me back." I sat heavily on the edge of the bed, my hands suddenly cold. Was it possible? Could my actions have actually caused Sophie's condition to worsen? The familiar weight of maternal guilt pressed down on me, threatening to crush the fragile independence I'd built over the past 2 weeks. Then I remembered Sophie's history, how she'd faked a sprained ankle to get out of a math test in 7th grade, how she'd claimed food poisoning to avoid a family reunion she didn't want to attend, how she'd manipulated me time and again with calculated displays of distress. I called Mark back. When he answered, his voice was curt. "Finally. How is Sophie?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "Stable. They're monitoring her and the baby. Her blood pressure spiked dangerously high after your email." "I see," I said carefully. "And what exactly did my email say that was so shocking?" He paused. "I don't know. She was too upset to show me. Something about cutting her off permanently. I simply reaffirmed what I'd already told you both, that the financial support has ended. Nothing new, nothing surprising. Well, whatever you said, it landed her in the hospital. Are you happy now?" The accusation hung between us, thousands of miles apart, yet intimately connected by the familiar dance of guilt and obligation. "No, Mark. I'm not happy that Sophie is in the hospital, but I'm also not responsible for her medical condition. Pregnant women have high blood pressure for many reasons." "You're unbelievable," he muttered. "Your daughter is in the hospital, possibly facing a high-risk pregnancy, and you're in Thailand playing tourist and making excuses." "I'm not making excuses," I said. "I'm stating facts. But since you brought it up, yes, I am in Thailand, living my life finally, after decades of putting everyone else first. At what cost, Mom? Your family, your grandchildren. My family exists whether I finance them or not," I pointed out. "And my grandchildren will know me as a person, not a checkbook, or they won't know me at all. That's up to you and Sophie now." There was a long silence. Then, in a voice so quiet I had to strain to hear it, "I need $10,000. The baldness of the request startled a laugh out of me. "Excuse me? For Sophie's medical bills, to cover her leave from work, to keep them from losing their house. $10,000. A loan, if that makes you feel better. You can have it back when—" "No," I interrupted. "Not 10,000, not $10. I'm not sending any money, Mark." "Then you're condemning your daughter and grandchild to financial ruin," he said bitterly. "I hope your temples and elephant rides are worth it." The line went dead before I could respond. I sat motionless for several minutes, phone still pressed to my ear. The old familiar guilt tugged at me, whispering that a good mother would help, would sacrifice, would put her children first. But another voice, newer and stronger, reminded me that I had helped, for years. I had sacrificed my retirement security, my dreams, my self-respect. I had put them first, at the expense of everything else in my life. And where had it gotten me? Standing on a doorstep on Christmas Day, being told I was at the wrong house. No, I was done. I set the phone down and walked back to the balcony. The The sun was setting over Bangkok, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Tomorrow, I would visit the floating markets. The day after, perhaps the ancient city of Ayutthaya. And in 3 days, I would board a plane to Vietnam, leaving this chapter behind. Whatever happens with Sophie and her pregnancy, whatever financial hardships my children face without my support, those were their stories now, not mine. For the first time in decades, I was writing my own story, and it would not be a tragedy. 6 months passed in a kaleidoscope of new experiences. Vietnam led to Cambodia, where I spent peaceful mornings watching the sun rise over Angkor Wat. From there, I traveled to Laos, then Malaysia, each country offering its own lessons in letting go. I volunteered at a medical clinic in a remote village in northern Thailand, my nursing skills transcending language barriers. I learned to scuba dive off the coast of Malaysia, discovering a silent world of color and movement beneath the surface. I celebrated my 59th birthday on a beach in Bali, sharing cake with a group of travelers half my age who insisted I join their bonfire party. Through it all, I maintained minimal contact with home. Diane and I exchanged emails weekly. She kept me informed of essential matters, but respected my wishes not to discuss Mark or Sophie unless absolutely necessary. From her brief updates, I gathered that Sophie had indeed been placed on bed rest, but had delivered a healthy baby girl in March, my 3rd grandchild, whom they'd named Lily. There had been no birth announcement, no photos sent, no invitation to meet the newest member of a family that had effectively disowned me. The knowledge sat like a small stone in my heart, not heavy enough to weigh me down, but present nonetheless. In June, while exploring a night market in Chiang Mai, my phone buzzed with an incoming email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line read, "From Daniel, Sophie's husband." I found a quiet corner away from the bustle of the market and opened it. "Ruth, I'm writing without Sophie's knowledge. She would be furious if she knew I was contacting you, but I feel you deserve to know what's happening. Things have been difficult since you left. Sophie had a complicated pregnancy and delivery, as you may have heard. Lily is perfect and healthy, but Sophie has struggled with postpartum depression on top of the financial stress. We've had to make significant changes. We sold our house and moved to a smaller apartment. Sophie returned to work earlier than planned, despite her doctor's recommendations. I've taken on consulting work in addition to my regular job. It's been challenging, but we're managing. Mark and Elaine have faced similar adjustments. They've pulled Emma from private school and listed their vacation cabin for sale. Mark took a second job on weekends. I don't tell you this to make you feel guilty, but so you understand the reality we've been living. The reason I'm writing is that Sophie received a job offer in Connecticut, a significant promotion that would mean financial stability for us. The catch is that we would need temporary housing while we look for a place of our own. Your apartment, according to Diane, remains empty but paid for. Sophie is too proud to ask, so I'm asking for her. For us. For Lily. I know we have no right to ask anything of you. I know my wife and her brother treated you inexcusably. I won't make excuses for them or for myself, as I stood by silently for too long. If you're still reading, thank you. If you choose not to respond, I understand. I just wanted you to know that despite everything, your family misses you. Not your money. You. Daniel. I stared at the screen, conflicting emotions churning inside me. It was the first honest communication I'd received from any of them. No manipulation, no demands, just a straightforward request and an acknowledgement of past wrongs. For a moment, I allowed myself to imagine saying yes. I could offer them the apartment, return to Connecticut, meet my granddaughter, attempt to rebuild some semblance of family. The path back to my old life stretched before me, familiar and safe. But then I remembered Christmas Day, the casual cruelty, the years of being taken for granted, the frantic calls that came only when the money stopped. Not your money. You. A beautiful sentiment, but was it true? Or was this simply a more sophisticated form of manipulation? I closed the email without responding and rejoined the vibrant chaos of the night market. I needed time to think. The next morning, I sat on the balcony of my guest house, watching the city come alive below me. After careful consideration, I composed my response. Daniel, thank you for your email. I appreciate your honesty about the family's situation and the acknowledgement of past behavior. I'm sorry to hear that Sophie struggled with her pregnancy and delivery, and that you've both had to make difficult financial adjustments. The same goes for Mark and his family. These are hard lessons, but necessary ones. Regarding the apartment, it's been paid through the end of August, after which Diane will be handling the final closing of the lease. You and Sophie are welcome to use it until then, with the understanding that this is a temporary arrangement and not a resumption of financial support. Diane has a key and can make the necessary arrangements. Please understand that this gesture does not erase the past or change my decision to live my own life. I won't be returning to Connecticut in the foreseeable future. My journey has become more than a reaction to Christmas Day. It's a reclaiming of myself after decades of putting everyone else first. As for meeting Lily, perhaps someday, but not now. Not like this. When and if we reconnect, it needs to be based on mutual respect and genuine affection, not necessity or convenience. I wish you, Sophie and Lily, well. Ruth, I hit send, then closed my laptop and went to pack. My flight to Japan left that afternoon, the next leg of a journey that had no fixed destination or end date. 3 days later, I received a brief reply from Daniel, thanking me for the apartment, and including, without comment, a photo of Lily. She was beautiful, with Sophie's delicate features and a shock of dark hair that reminded me of her grandfather. I saved the photo but didn't respond. That night I called Diane. They're really struggling, aren't they? I asked after we'd exchanged pleasantries. Yes, she said simply. But they're figuring it out. Sophie's job offer is legitimate. A good position with better pay. Mark's taken a financial planning course, if you can believe it. Apparently he's become quite the budgeting expert. I laughed softly. Better late than never, I suppose. Are you having second thoughts? She asked carefully. About the money? No. About cutting them off completely? Sometimes, I admitted. I look at that photo of Lily and wonder if I'm punishing an innocent child for her parents' mistakes. You're not punishing anyone, Ruth. You're living your life. There's a difference. Is there? I mused. Sometimes it feels like a very fine line. The difference, she said firmly, is intent. You didn't leave to hurt them. You left to save yourself. I considered this as I watched the Tokyo skyline glitter outside my window. I offered them the apartment. I know. Daniel called me yesterday. He was grateful, though Sophie hasn't said a word about it. She wouldn't, I said. Pride runs deep in this family. Wonder where she gets that from, Diane teased. After we hung up, I sat for a long time, thinking about family, about choices, about the ripple effects of a single moment on a snowy doorstep. Had I done the right thing? By most traditional standards, probably not. A good mother would have forgiven, would have returned, would have continued to sacrifice. But those standards had nearly destroyed me, had enabled behaviors that diminished us all. In the end, the question wasn't whether I'd done the right thing, but whether I could live with the choice I'd made. And the answer, increasingly, was yes. 1 year to the day after that fateful Christmas, I found myself on a beach in New Zealand, watching the sunrise on what would be a warm summer day in the Southern Hemisphere. My phone buzzed with a text message from an international number I didn't recognize. It's Sophie. Daniel gave me your number. Lily took her first steps yesterday. I recorded it. Thought you might want to see. No pressure to respond. Attached was a video. I watched it with a curious detachment. A beautiful, dark-haired toddler wobbling across a living room floor, arms outstretched toward the camera, face alight with triumph and joy. It was the first direct communication from Sophie in a year. No demands, no accusations, no guilt trips. Just a grandmother's moment, freely shared. I saved the video but didn't respond immediately. Later that day, I sent a simple reply. Thank you for sharing this. She's beautiful. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was something. A small crack in the wall between us, allowing in just enough light to see that there might be a path forward, someday. Not back to what we were. That relationship was gone forever. But perhaps towards something new. Something with boundaries. something based on choice rather than obligation. As the sun climbed higher over the Pacific, I walked along the shoreline, feet sinking into warm sand. Ahead of me stretched miles of untraveled beach. Behind me, a set of footprints already being erased by the incoming tide. I had no idea where this path would lead, but for the first time in my life, that uncertainty didn't frighten me. It excited me, because it was my path, my choice, my life, and no one, not even my children, would ever take that from me again.